Can no one hear us scream? Please Ridley. Ridley Scott has announced his intention to make a third Alien prequel. When will he incite? Ridley Scott has announced his intention to make a third Alien prequel. When will he incite? If a filmmaker sets out on a new project with the best of intentions, is it really fair for fans to criticize them when the result of their endeavors ends up the most rotten of eggs? I asked whether, 20 years after the execrable Phantom Menace was first shown in cinemas, it might be time to forgive George Lucas. As recently as, you go to make a movie and all you do is get criticized, and people try to make decisions about what you're going to do before you do it. And it's not much fun. It is hard to argue with this auteurist line of reasoning. The Phantom Menace, I was reminded of Lucas' comments when reading, to mark 40 years since the release of Alien. Discussing the 30, you get to the point when you say, okay, it's dead in the water, said Scott. I said to them, it is easy to see why Scott did not want to give us another movie about xenomorphs, preferring instead to explore how the evil space beasts got to LV-426 Indiana the first place and what kind of horrid race might have engineered them. Unfortunately, once again, this is where the argument in favor of directors being given free rein to experiment breaks down. For all that the news that despite Covenant's lukewarm reviews and dreadful box office receipts does little to discourage the view that he really should take a deep breath and walk away. Alien is such a that does not mean Scott should be allowed to keep indulging his to flesh out the story. Down on Earth, before you post, would like to thank you for joining the debate. We're glad you've chosen to participate and we value your opinions and experiences. Please choose your username under which you would like all your comments to show up. You can only set, please keep your posts respectful and abide by the and. If you spot a comment you think doesn't adhere to the guidelines, please use the report link next to it to let us know. Please preview your comment below and click post when you're happy with it.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,